Stop for a moment. Before you scroll away, ask yourself one question. Why are you really here right now? You're not watching this by accident. You're searching for something most people can't name but feel every day. An advantage. An explanation. A reason why certain individuals seem to dominate outcomes while others keep struggling despite doing everything they were told was right. Here's the uncomfortable truth. What you were taught about success was incomplete at best and misleading at worst. You were told effort guarantees results. That patience is always rewarded. That honesty alone creates power. And like most people, you believed it. But look around closely. The ones at the top aren't playing by those rules. They never have. 5 centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli observed this reality in one of the most brutal environments imaginable. Renaissance Italy was a battlefield of ambition. States collapsed overnight. Ordinary families became dynasties. Virtuous men died forgotten, while ruthless strategists shaped history. Machiavelli didn't judge it. He documented it. What he left behind was not philosophy, but a raw map of how power actually moves. What you're about to hear isn't theory or motivation. It's pattern recognition. The same patterns repeated by the top 1% across centuries, cultures, and systems. These 10 lessons are the dividing line between those who influence reality and those who only respond to it. Once you recognize them, you'll start seeing them everywhere, in conversations, conflicts, alliances, victories, and defeats. So ask yourself honestly, do you want to see the world as it is, not as you were told it should be? Comfort lives in ignorance. Awareness demands a cost. If you're still here, you've already chosen. Let's dismantle the illusion. Rule 1: Master strategic absence. Here's a power move almost no one understands, because it feels backward. Step away. Not forever. Not dramatically. But precisely when people expect your presence the most. When they think they've figured you out. When access to you feels guaranteed. That's when you withdraw. When you are always available, you become predictable. Predictable things fade into the background. They lose weight. They lose leverage. Constant presence turns you into noise instead of signal. Power never lives in what is always there. It lives in what can't be accessed on demand. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Scarcity creates respect. When someone doesn't know when they'll hear from you, see you, or gain access to you again, their mind fills the gap. Curiosity grows. Attention sharpens. Importance increases. The moment you disappear, even briefly, the power dynamic shifts. They begin adjusting to you instead of the other way around. This isn't about being unavailable or unreliable. It's about controlling frequency. Strategic absence creates hunger, not resentment. When you do appear, your presence feels intentional. It carries weight. Conversations become focused. Interactions become efficient. People value what they fear losing. Think about it. The things that matter most in the world are limited. Time. Opportunity. Access. When you treat your time like it's endlessly available, others will too. But when you protect it, filter it, and offer it selectively, it becomes valuable by default. This principle isn't manipulation. It's economics applied to human attention. Rare things are valued. Common things are consumed. If you want respect, stop showing up everywhere, all the time, for everyone. Commit selectively. When you say yes, show up fully. When you say no, mean it. Watch what changes when your presence is no longer guaranteed. People begin scheduling around you. Conversations tighten. Effort increases on their side. Absence creates space, and in that space, your value grows. The one who controls access controls the dynamic. Write this affirmation in the comments: my presence is premium. Rule 2: your reputation is your empire. Everything you build can be destroyed by a single sentence spoken in the wrong place, at the wrong time, by the wrong person. One rumor. One story. One interpretation that spreads faster than truth ever could. That's because reputation doesn't live in facts. It lives in perception. And perception moves power. Your reputation is not abstract. It is a form of currency. It opens doors before you arrive or seals them before you ever get close. People decide how to treat you long before you speak, based entirely on what they believe about you. And the most dangerous part is this: if you are not actively shaping that belief, someone else is doing it for you. Machiavelli warned that honor does not come from titles, but from the individual who wears them. In other words, what people say about you matters more than what you claim about yourself. Your reputation enters rooms ahead of you. It whispers in conversations you will never hear. It shapes decisions you will never get a chance to influence directly. This is why power demands obsession with perception. Not insecurity. Not paranoia. Strategy. Every action you take sends a signal. Every choice writes another line in the story people repeat about you. Are you reliable under pressure? That becomes a reputation. Are you confident but reckless? That becomes a reputation. Do you stay composed when others panic? That too is remembered. You are always being read, even when you think no one is watching. But here's the darker reality. Someone will eventually try to damage what you've built. Not because you failed, but because you succeeded. Envy, competition, fear, and boredom create attackers. And when they move, ignoring it is fatal. Silence does not protect truth. The strongest narrative survives, not the most accurate one. The powerful understand this. They respond quickly, deliberately, and emotionally detached. They don't argue. They redirect. They suffocate attacks by replacing them with a stronger story. They control the frame so tightly that accusations lose momentum before they can take shape. Reputation must be defended with the same intensity used to build it. History proves this lesson mercilessly. Kingdoms collapsed over whispers. Fortunes disappeared because someone else controlled the story better. Influence is fragile when reputation is unmanaged. Once it cracks, everything built on top of it becomes unstable. Your reputation is both armor and weapon. It shields you before conflict begins and strikes on your behalf when you are not present. Treat it as something alive. Maintain it. Guard it. Shape it intentionally. Because once it's gone, nothing you say will matter. Write this affirmation in the comments: I own my story. Rule 3: predictability is a death sentence. The fastest way to lose power is simple. Let people figure you out. The moment someone can anticipate your reaction, your decision, or your next move, you've already lost leverage. You've become a pattern. And patterns can be studied, exploited, and neutralized. Once you are predictable, you stop being a threat. You become manageable. Others begin planning around you instead of reacting to you. They know which buttons to press, which angles work, and which behaviors trigger the response they want. At that point, you're no longer playing the game. You're being played. Machiavelli warned against this trap by describing two forces of power: strength and cunning. Most people misunderstand this and choose one. They build a single identity and cling to it. They are always aggressive or always agreeable, always logical or always emotional, always bold or always cautious. That consistency feels stable, even virtuous. In reality, it makes them easy to defeat. Power comes from range, from the ability to shift roles without warning. Sometimes you apply pressure. Sometimes you disappear. Sometimes you confront. Sometimes you observe. When people expect force, you move subtly. When they expect subtlety, you move decisively. The uncertainty forces them to hesitate, and hesitation creates opportunity for you. Unpredictability does not mean chaos. It is not acting irrational or random. It is refusing to be boxed into a single response pattern. It is maintaining multiple options and revealing none of them fully. When someone presses the same button and gets different outcomes, control breaks down. They lose confidence in their ability to manipulate you. Think about how control actually works. If someone knows that provoking you always leads to anger, they can farm that reaction whenever it suits them. If silence always makes you uncomfortable, silence becomes a weapon. But when your responses vary, sometimes calm, sometimes firm, sometimes absent, the strategy collapses. They can no longer prepare for you. This is why rigid personalities fail in power games. They confuse identity with strategy. They announce who they are and then behave exactly as expected. In doing so, they hand others a manual explaining how to beat them. Flexibility is not dishonesty. It is intelligence applied to survival. The most powerful individuals operate inside uncertainty. Not to appear mysterious, but because mystery creates caution. The less certain people are about how you will act, the more carefully they treat you. That caution gives you space to move, adapt, and strike when it matters most. Consistency feels safe, but safety breeds weakness. Power favors those who can shift, adjust, and evolve faster than the situation around them. The one who can change rhythm controls the tempo. And the one who controls the tempo controls the outcome. Write this affirmation in the comments: I stay flexible. Rule 4: Timing defeats strength. You can do everything right and still lose if you move at the wrong moment. This is the lesson most people never recover from, because it exposes a painful truth. What you do matters far less than when you do it. Perfect plans fail every day because they arrive too early or too late. Most people focus on effort, preparation, and execution. They assume that if those elements are strong enough, results are guaranteed. They are not. Timing overrides all of them. Strength without timing is wasted force. Intelligence without timing is noise. Even courage becomes self-destructive when applied at the wrong moment. Machiavelli understood that wisdom is not speed or hesitation, but precision. The wise act immediately only when the moment demands immediacy. At other times, they wait while pressure builds, while others reveal their positions, while conditions align. The foolish move when emotion tells them to, not when strategy requires it. Move too early and you expose yourself. You show your intentions before others commit. You spend energy before resistance appears. You peak before the real conflict begins. Early action feels bold, but it often hands advantage to those who stayed silent and observed. Move too late and the window closes. Opportunities do not announce their expiration dates. By the time hesitation ends, someone else has already taken position. What could have been yours becomes a lesson instead. Late action feels safe, but safety rarely produces power. The powerful develop a rare ability: patience under pressure. They can sit inside discomfort without reacting. They can delay gratification while others rush to relieve tension. They understand that momentum is more valuable than effort, and momentum only appears at specific moments. But patience alone is not enough. When the moment arrives, they move without hesitation. They compress time. They act so decisively that others are forced to react instead of plan. This shift, waiting calmly, then striking instantly, is what separates strategists from participants. Timing is reading energy. Noticing when resistance is weakening, when attention is distracted, when alliances are unstable, when silence is louder than action. It is sensing when to let things develop and when to interrupt the process completely. You keep losing not because you lack ability, but because you act when you feel ready instead of when conditions are aligned. Read the room. Watch patterns. Track momentum. And when the moment presents itself, do not delay. Write this affirmation in the comments: I move with precision. Rule 5. Your circle is your ceiling. Look closely at the people you spend the most time with. Not casually. Seriously. Because they are quietly shaping the direction of your life whether you admit it or not. You may believe you're independent, self-made, unaffected by influence. That belief is comforting and false. No one rises or falls alone. We are all products of proximity. Machiavelli understood this clearly. He believed the quickest way to judge a ruler was to look at the people surrounding him. Apply that same logic to yourself. Your environment is a mirror. It reflects your standards, your thinking, your ambition, and your limits. The future you are walking toward is being rehearsed daily through the people around you. Influence doesn't require intention. It works silently. You absorb beliefs the same way lungs absorb air. When you spend time with people who think small, you begin shrinking your vision without noticing. When you stay around those who complain instead of create, excuses start to feel reasonable. When you surround yourself with people who have surrendered, that surrender becomes familiar. This isn't about judging others or believing you're better than anyone. It's about understanding how energy transfers. Ambition spreads. Discipline spreads. Courage spreads. But so does mediocrity. So does fear. So does settling. Whatever surrounds you long enough becomes normal, and whatever becomes normal eventually becomes destiny. The powerful are ruthless about this, not out of arrogance, but survival. They audit their circle constantly. They understand that proximity programs behavior and behavior shapes outcomes. This means making decisions that feel uncomfortable. Creating distance from people who care about you but cannot grow with you. Releasing connections that feel familiar but keep you anchored to old versions of yourself. Loyalty is often misunderstood. Loyalty to your past can sabotage your future. The person you are becoming requires different influences than the person you were. Holding on to every old connection is not noble when it limits your evolution. Growth demands selection. This does not mean abandoning everyone. It means choosing influence intentionally. You seek people who stretch your thinking, challenge your comfort, and expand what you believe is possible. You build relationships based on direction, not history. Based on trajectory, not nostalgia. You can have skill, intelligence, and strategy, but if your environment pulls you backward, progress becomes a constant uphill battle. There is no neutral circle. People either elevate you or limit you. Choose accordingly. Write this affirmation in the comments: I choose growth. Rule 6. Control through illusion. The darkest truth about power is this: real control rarely looks like control. It doesn't shout. It doesn't force. It doesn't command openly. True power guides quietly. It shapes conditions so that people move exactly where you want them to move while believing the decision was entirely their own. Machiavelli understood human nature clearly. People resist orders, but they embrace choices, especially choices that feel self-directed. The mistake most people make is trying to dominate outcomes through pressure. Pressure creates resistance. Resistance creates enemies. The powerful avoid this by never appearing to force anything at all. Control works best when it feels invisible. Instead of giving someone unlimited freedom, which creates confusion and paralysis, you frame the options. You present paths where every road leads to the outcome you want. To them, it feels like autonomy. In reality, the destination was decided before the choice was made. This is not deception for its own sake. It is structure. Humans crave guidance more than freedom, but they resent being told what to do. When you provide direction disguised as choice, people cooperate willingly. They feel respected. They feel empowered. And they move in alignment with your interests. Watch how weak leaders behave. They issue commands. They demand compliance. They argue. They threaten consequences. Every direct order increases tension. Every push creates friction. The powerful do the opposite. They frame decisions. They ask which option feels right. They allow others to select the path that benefits them most, while still serving the larger strategy. This works because humans defend their own decisions fiercely. We may resist someone else's authority, but we protect choices we believe we made ourselves. Once someone chooses a path, they become invested in it. They justify it. They support it. They carry it forward without being pushed. Control through illusion is not about manipulation in the crude sense. It is about understanding psychology and using it intelligently. You stop demanding outcomes and start designing environments. You become the architect of decisions rather than the enforcer of rules. When you master this, conflict disappears. You don't argue. You don't chase compliance. You don't waste energy convincing anyone. You simply present structure, and people move within it naturally. Influence becomes effortless because resistance never forms. Write this affirmation in the comments: I architect outcomes. Rule 7. Strategic vulnerability is strength. Up to this point, you might believe power means armor. Silence. Emotional distance. Never revealing a crack. That belief is exactly what keeps most people weak. Real power understands something most never do. Controlled vulnerability is not weakness, it's leverage. Machiavelli observed that people who never adjust, who cling rigidly to one way of being, eventually collapse when circumstances shift. Adaptation is survival. And adaptation includes knowing when to lower your guard on purpose. This is not about oversharing. This is not about emotional confession. This is not about exposing your wounds to anyone who asks. Strategic vulnerability is deliberate disclosure. You stay guarded long enough that people see you as composed, unreadable, difficult to penetrate. Then, at the right moment, with the right individual, you reveal something real. Something costly to share. Something human. And the effect is immediate. Their perception of you changes. Their guard lowers. Trust forms faster than logic ever could. In that moment, influence multiplies. The powerful understand rhythm. They don't stay hardened forever. They oscillate. Sometimes warm. Sometimes distant. Sometimes generous. Sometimes ruthless. That contrast keeps people psychologically engaged, unsure which version they'll encounter. Even honesty follows this rule. Constant honesty becomes predictable. Random honesty becomes noise. Timed honesty becomes disarming. You don't reveal truth because it feels good. You reveal truth because it shifts the dynamic. The mistake most people make is confusing vulnerability with authenticity. They expose everything, hoping it will create closeness. Instead, it creates loss of respect. Powerful individuals do the opposite. They reveal rarely. And when they do, it lands with weight. You are not an open book. You are a locked archive. Access is earned. Pages are revealed intentionally. And when vulnerability is rare, it becomes unforgettable. Drop this affirmation in the comments: I reveal with intention. Rule 8. Speak their language, not yours. Most people fail to influence anyone because they speak from their own perspective, not the other person's reality. They argue with logic. They explain with facts. They justify with reasons that make sense to them. And then they're confused when nothing changes. Here's the uncomfortable truth: people don't care what matters to you. They care what affects them. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He observed that humans judge with their eyes before their hands, meaning perception always comes before substance. People respond emotionally first, rationally second. And emotion is driven by self-interest. If you want someone to act, stop explaining why it's important to you. Start showing why it benefits them. This is where influence either dies or comes alive. Powerful individuals don't persuade, they translate. They take their objective and express it in terms of the other person's desires, fears, ambitions, or pressures. They speak directly to the internal question everyone is silently asking. What does this do for me? When that question is answered clearly, resistance disappears. This isn't manipulation. It's alignment. You're not forcing someone to care. You're revealing how your goal already intersects with theirs. When people see that connection, cooperation feels natural, even obvious. Watch how real power operates. They don't say, "This is the right decision." They say, "This moves you closer to what you want." No debate. No convincing. No emotional friction. Just clarity. Think back to moments when you successfully influenced someone. You weren't talking about yourself. You were focused on their outcome, their gain, their advantage. Now think of times you failed. You were probably explaining your vision, your logic, your reasoning, and they nodded politely while doing nothing. That's because humans don't move for explanations. They move for incentives. Every decision passes through a personal filter. If you don't address that filter, your words won't land, no matter how correct you are. So learn their language. Identify what motivates them. Understand what they fear losing. Recognize what they want more than they admit. Then frame everything through that lens. When saying yes feels better for them than saying no, the decision makes itself. That's how influence works without force. That's how cooperation happens without conflict. That's how power moves quietly and wins consistently. You don't need people to care about what you care about. You need them to see how it connects to what they already care about. That is real influence. Rule 9. Information is the real currency. While most people chase money, status, and recognition, the truly powerful pursue something far more valuable: information. Because money follows power. Status follows power. And power follows knowledge. Those who know more always move first. They prepare while others react. They position themselves while everyone else is confused. Machiavelli understood this clearly. He warned that flattery thrives where truth feels dangerous, meaning that leaders who don't create space for honest information are blind by choice. Power begins the moment information flows to you instead of around you. The powerful are obsessed with knowing. They ask questions most people don't think to ask. They listen longer than they speak. They notice details others dismiss. They remember what everyone else forgets. Not because they're curious, but because information creates leverage. When you understand motivations, hidden pressures, alliances, fears, and ambitions, you stop guessing. You stop reacting. You move with certainty while others hesitate. Every conversation becomes intelligence gathering. That casual remark someone thought was meaningless, you store it. That small inconsistency everyone ignored, you track it. That pattern barely forming, you map it. Over time, fragments become structure. Structure becomes foresight. And foresight is dominance. But information power has a second rule: protect what you know. The powerful never overshare. They release information deliberately, never emotionally. They understand that asymmetry, knowing more than you reveal, is advantage. They trade information only when it benefits them. They share selectively. They never give away leverage for free. This isn't paranoia. It's discipline. You want to be ahead? Talk less. Listen more. Ask questions that expose intent, not opinions. Build a mental map of who wants what, who fears what, who knows what, and who doesn't. When you see that map clearly, the future stops being uncertain. Others call it luck when you move at the perfect time. You'll know it was preparation. Drop this affirmation in comments: I see what others miss. Rule 10: finish what you start. More ambitions are destroyed by incompletion than by failure. Not defeat, but loose ends. Not loss, but unfinished business. Situations you thought were resolved but weren't. People you assumed were handled but weren't. Problems you delayed because confronting them felt uncomfortable. Machiavelli warned that harm left incomplete invites revenge. His lesson wasn't cruelty, it was finality. If you act, act decisively. Half measures don't reduce risk. They create it. Unfinished actions are silent threats. A door left half closed can always reopen. An unresolved conflict never disappears, it waits. Ambiguity doesn't create peace. It creates future enemies. The weak avoid closure because clarity feels harsh. They delay conversations. They leave outcomes undefined. They hope time will fix what only decisiveness can. And then they're shocked when old problems resurface stronger than before. The powerful are obsessive about completion. They close loops. They eliminate ambiguity. They confirm outcomes instead of assuming them. When something is done, it is done, with no room for reinterpretation. This means being thorough. Relentless about details. Verifying instead of trusting. Documenting instead of assuming. Ending things cleanly instead of leaving emotional or strategic residue behind. When they start something, they finish it fully. When they end something, they end it completely. When they move with finality. Because later is where disasters grow. Later is where ignored problems evolve. Later is where half-solved issues return with consequences. Later is where unfinished business destroys finished success. The most dangerous threats aren't the obvious ones, they're the forgotten ones. So seal every ending. Clarify every outcome. Leave nothing open that can be weaponized against you. Those who win aren't just strong starters. They are ruthless finishers. Write this affirmation in the comments: I complete what I begin. You've reached the end, but what matters isn't that you listened. It's what you do next. Most people will walk away from this and feel briefly inspired, then return to the same habits, the same reactions, the same blind spots. Not because they're incapable, but because awareness is uncomfortable, and comfort is addictive. What you've just learned isn't dark. It's honest. The world doesn't reward intentions. It rewards understanding. It doesn't move on fairness, it moves on perception, timing, leverage, and human nature. These lessons have been operating quietly whether you acknowledge them or not. The only difference now is that you can see them. And yes, part of you may resist this. You might feel tension, doubt, even moral conflict. That's normal. That's the moment where illusion breaks. Growth always feels like friction before it feels like freedom. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming conscious. You can keep playing the game blind, hoping the rules change in your favor. Or you can accept reality as it is and move with intention instead of impulse. Most people choose comfort. A small few choose clarity. If something inside you shifted, if a pattern clicked, if a truth landed heavier than expected, acknowledge it. That moment matters. Share this with someone who's still asleep to the game. And stay here, because this is only the surface. We're not here to motivate. We're here to reveal. The world is strategic whether you are or not. Now you see the board. Now you know the moves. What you do from here decides everything. Stay aware. Stay deliberate. And stay ahead. Until next time.